a moment you was wearing your Parkinson's t-shirt.
I am wearing my.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
excellent, excellent.
Well,
What a
that,
proper guy.
you don't start counting your miles until July, presumably, do you, Rory?
Oh, I did this, I don't know, about 18 months ago. I can't remember.
It doesn't
Well, I'm
matter.
doing next.
Nobody. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to ask.
Yeah. Rory Cellan-Jones.
So whereabouts are you based, Rory?
I'm based in my kitchen
Yes,
in Ealing in West London.
in Ealing in West London.
I would normally be upstairs, but just to warn you, I've got a loaf in the oven. So today, I'm going to have to take it out.
Very practical.
When should we remind you when it's supposed to come out?
No, Dr. Google, my clever device,
Oh, good.
will set off an alarm in about 25 minutes.
Jill,
Right.
we can only see your hairline. Whoops.
There we
Hello, Jill.
Morning.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Let me
Morning,
check.
Alan. Nice to see you.
Morning.
Is this a regular Friday appointment?
We do one every effectively second and fourth Friday of the month.
Right.
So we used to meet once a month on the fourth Friday before lockdown, and since lockdown we've been meeting every couple of weeks for an hour, and we have a regular community, which is just lovely. And
where did you used to meet in person?
oh, we used to meet in at Scottsdale's in Great Shelford.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a wonderful charity room that's available. So we were very fortunate to be able to use that.
We've got David's elbow.
And how many of you are there normally?
Oh, that's a good question. Anything between 20 and 40. We had Professor Roger Barker, who is one of the top guys at the Brain Repair Centre, talked to us a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And I must admit, we topped almost 60 people. So I'm sorry, I'm not setting you up here, Rory.
Oh dear, this is bad because I'm just going to ramble. I am not a top professor, I've got to tell you.
No.
Although I live with a top professor, my wife, who's a professor in Cambridge,
Is she?
on the next floor up.
Right. And what's her subject?
She is an economist.
Right.
And she runs a new institute called the Bennett Institute for Public Policy.
Ah.
So it's about public policy. She is the Bennett Professor of Public Policy.
Good.
Bennett, St. Bennett's.
No, not St. Bennett's. It's after a Mr. Bennett who gets the money to start this institute. And she lives in a studio flat in just around near Homerton College, Cavendish Avenue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
3 days a week, and then she's home. But she's working 7 days a week. She works much harder than me.
Well, seeing as you're here, Rory, and I'm recording so people can pick up the recording once we've finished, and you've got a loaf in the oven.
Bread in the oven, yeah.
Yeah, we really don't want that to cause the fire alarms to go off. So I'm delighted that we've got the opportunity to have Rory talk to us today. Rory's a Londoner, despite his name. He's an alumni of Jesus College. He's been a regular fixture on our TV for probably the last couple of decades, talking to us about the world of high tech and trying to explain things to us in layman's terms. And now he's one of the 140 odd thousand people in the UK that is suffering with Parkinson's. So if I may, Rory, please, the floor is yours. I'll put you on spotlight. I will silence everybody if I can. Mute you all.
Sure.
If you can unmute yourself, Rory.
I was going to say, you're about to all shout, "You're on mute."
You're on.
The great cry of the day. Yeah, but feel free to unmute yourself to barrack or laugh or cry or whatever.
Okay.
So very good to meet you all. I've done quite a lot of events around Parkinson's, but never with a group like this. So this is great. So let me tell you first of all a bit about myself. I studied at Cambridge, 1977 to 1981. I studied modern languages at Jesus College. I had 6 months in West Berlin before going to Cambridge, which was amazing in the late 70s. And then a year abroad in the middle in Paris, being an assistant d'anglais at a lycée and enjoying Parisian life. So I had a great time at Cambridge. And in my final year, when I came back and was a bit more confident, I got heavily involved in student journalism. With the student paper was then called Stop Press and was full of aspiring journalists, many of whom ended up in the profession. And I left and was unemployed for 3 months, but then got a 3-month contract with the BBC. So in September 1981, I started at the BBC in Leeds as an all-purpose researcher, writer, got sent out with camera crews, learned an awful lot. And within 15 months, I got a job in London in the main television newsroom, working on the news bulletins, which I didn't find so good because I didn't go out much. But I then worked on Newsnight, and I desperately wanted to be a reporter. So eventually I got a job in Wales. I think they were slightly confused when I turned up because they thought Rory Cellan-Jones is going to be the real deal. And then they found that this bloke had a slight South London accent because that's where I'd been brought up. But they soon knocked that out of me. I had a great couple of years in Cardiff, reporting on the local news programme there, national news programme, I should say, Wales Today. And then got a job on BBC Breakfast TV in the late 80s. And then from the early 90s onwards, I became a business reporter and a business correspondent. And in some ways, that's what I've done ever since. But because in the late 90s, I began to take a huge interest in the business of the internet. All the most interesting stories were about the dot-com companies. And then I did that for a bit, and then they said, oh, the internet's over, go back to doing business. But in 2007, I got made technology correspondent. They kind of acknowledged that that's what I was interested in, still in the economics unit, and I've been technology correspondent ever since. So 14 years now as technology correspondent, which is a fantastic job. Now, it's a very varied life. I used to be just a TV reporter. I've done less TV lately, more and more radio. I do a weekly radio program on the BBC World Service, which I've done for the last 15 months from my attic, not live, but recorded with my producer in St Albans and another reporter, because I present it in their home, whether it's in Winchester or Maidenhead. And somehow we've made the technology work and stitched it all together in our different homes. So it's been a bit of a triumph for technology. So I've been getting on with that. My health generally over the years has been pretty good, except I had a big cancer scare in 2005 when I was diagnosed with a malignant melanoma behind my left eye, which was very, very scary. But I'm still treated for that every 6 months or so by Moorfields Hospital, and that's kind of steady state. But in the summer of 2018, my exercise used to be running very slowly, although I took part in 5 half marathons, the Ealing Half Marathon, pretty slowly, but raising quite a lot of money for charity. The last time I did it, I cropped myself really badly, and I began seeing a physiotherapist, and I got better. But then in the summer of 2018, while on holiday in Italy with my wife, I was just dragging my right foot all the time. And she would walk behind me going, pick your feet up, pick your feet up. What are you doing there? And I spoke to my physiotherapist, who's a bit of a mate of mine, an Aussie with whom I talk mostly about sport, josh each other about cricket and rugby and so on. And he was quite sharp, and he didn't say anything, but he just said, I think you ought to, this is beyond my expertise, I think you ought to see your GP about that. And I saw my GP in like September, October 2018, who was a bit mystified and referred me to a consultant neurologist at St Mary's Paddington, which in the way of these things, I didn't get to see until 4 months later in January. Now, by then, I had, the BBC had a letter written in. I'd appeared on live from the Channel Islands, doing a story about the Jersey being given full fibre internet for everybody in town, everybody on the island, the first island in the world to become fully fibred up. And I was holding a piece of fibre live on breakfast television. And somebody wrote into the BBC saying they were a neuroscientist at Leeds University, saying, couldn't help noticing Mr. Cellan-Jones had a bit of a tremor. This can be an early sign of Parkinson's disease, and I should get that seen to. So I wasn't totally surprised when in January that year, I was told in slightly kind of bold terms, not by the consultant I then saw, but by her slightly more junior assistant. Yes, you've got the symptoms of Parkinsonism. Oh, fine. What you should know about it is that it's incurable and there's no real way of slowing it down. Oh, great. But there is some medication. Thanks a lot. Now, for me, as I said, it wasn't a total shock. I'd done a bit of Googling. Funnily enough, I had gone and interviewed a company a couple of months earlier that was doing some work on using artificial intelligence to diagnose Parkinson's. And they were filming people doing this as part of gathering the data. And I stood there watching this and thinking, I don't find that so easy anymore. I wonder. Anyway, so it had all begun to click in. And although it's not a great thing to hear, I also knew a bit about it because my dad, my very elderly father, had Parkinson's, but it was just like one damn thing after another, Parkinson's on top of other health issues. And the other thing was that compared with a cancer diagnosis sort of 15 years earlier, which had seemed imminently life-threatening, although it didn't turn out to be, this didn't seem so bad, but obviously not great. And it happened to be just 2 days before I was due to fly off to this thing I used to go to every year in Las Vegas, the biggest gadget fest on earth, CES. And I turned up at this, I got more, people always say, you lucky devil, a free holiday in Las Vegas. And I go, I've been now 15 times to Las Vegas. The first 2 times, it's got a certain interest and curiosity. And then after that, enough already. And the 8-hour time difference, if you're trying to do pieces for the news, is a nightmare because you're always behind the times. Probably too many late night beers and so on. So that year I was kind of, well, I've had this news, although I still had to have a DAT scan to confirm it. So not so great. But I came back and I don't know what your experiences were, but first of all, when this slightly junior doctor had seen me, she said it might take 4 months, another 4 months to see my consultant. And I did begin to cut up a bit rough then. And they did manage to accelerate that. So it was only 3 or 4 weeks later that I saw the consultant for, you know, the final confirmation that it was Parkinson's. And then things began to get a lot better in terms of being integrated into the health system. And I immediately had discussions with my consultant, Dr. Joanna Ball, about medication. And I'm sure we've all had these similar discussions about when is the right time to start medication. And she was very good and talked to me about the balance of, you know, if you take it too early, it might not have the effect when you need it. And there are these side effects, but we decided to go on medication and went on Cinemet. And ever since then, I've been, one of the difficulties is grading the medication. I immediately read, you know, I read the Michael J. Fox book. I got very involved in Parkinsons UK, who are brilliant, I think, great charity. Tried to learn an awful lot about it. But the one thing that struck me immediately was that I wasn't experiencing what a lot of people say they do, which is there was a whole campaign about making sure people got their medication on time. That lots of people would say, I take it at, you know, 12 o'clock and 10 minutes later, I'm suddenly, you know, I notice a huge difference. I've never found that. But on the other hand, I've also not found a rapid deterioration. I don't think I'm much worse than I was 2 years ago. So the other big thing that happened that year, 2019, was that at first, of course, you know, I told family and I told my immediate boss at work and a couple of close colleagues. I put out an email saying to close colleagues saying, oh, I've got this, don't worry about it. Although I won't be carrying the tripod anymore. One of the worst things as a TV reporter is carrying the cameraman making you carry this great heavy tripod. So I said, I'm going to use the excuse to get out of that, but I will still be able to carry the odd pint in the pub. Although what I have noticed is if I'm carrying 2 pints in the pub, you don't want the one that I've been carrying in my right hand, because that may be half empty by the time I get to you. Anyway, so it was, you know, quite a limited number of people. And then there came a day in May 2019, the end of May, when I was doing a big story, which was the launch of 5G, the latest phone system, mobile phone operating standard. And we were going to do a broadcast over 5G from Covent Garden. It was going to be a historic broadcast. And there was a few things went wrong, and then it all happened and it was all fine. And I was going off to spend the rest of the day filming more reports for the television news. I was going to Birmingham. And I met up with a very nice producer that I work with from time to time called Priya. And she said to me, I just wanted to have a word with you. And then we were on a crowded train, and you know, it wasn't the moment. And then the train got less crowded. And she said to me, have you thought about going public about your Parkinson's? And I said, yeah, I have thought about it. I'm just, you know, not quite sure how to do it. And she said, well, it was very obvious this morning on the television. And when I look back, it was really obvious. I was all over the place. And quite a few more people had, you know, I use Twitter a lot. I'd mentioned it on Twitter. So I thought I'll just do a tweet. And I sat on the train and wrote out a tweet. I'm referring to a book, so I remember exactly what I said. But it had the most extraordinary effect. So what I wrote was this: a couple of people have noticed my hand shaking in my live 5G broadcast today. So seems a good time to reveal that I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's. I'm getting good treatment and the symptoms are mild right now. So I'm carrying on as normal, onwards and upwards. So I put that out. I was on a train to Birmingham. I put that out at about Birmingham International, about the airport. And by the time I got off at Birmingham New Street 5 minutes later, my phone was going ballistic. The reaction was fantastic. I mean, I write a lot about the negative side of social media. This was a really positive side. Got huge support from friends, colleagues, other journalists, and just the general public. Only one really negative tweet from some nutter who said you've been standing too close to too many 5G masts, which I kind of dismissed. So from then on, I've had a lot of, interest in what I can say about Parkinson's. And as I said before, I am by no means at all an expert, but I have tried to explore the subject for personal and professional reasons. And for me, it's quite therapeutic to actually get a story out of this, this rotten condition. And the latest story I've done is about a trial I've been on. So as I said earlier, my consultant, Dr. Joanna Ball, is kind of really great and open-minded, and you'll know this thing. You see each other every 4 months, trying to work out whether the medication is working. Tweak it each time is really difficult. You're talking about your own recall, and it's just not very good. It's very difficult to grade the medication. And she said she was going to refer me to somebody for a second opinion. And that somebody was a man called Dr. Yen Tai, who is an amazing, really young consultant at, it's called the Imperial College Healthcare Trust now, but it's what I call Charing Cross Hospital. And I met him over Zoom. Aren't we all sick of Zoom? I know it's great in some ways, but enough already, a bit of real. But he was great. He could just about, he could see me walking up and down the room. He made me do a few things. And he did adjust my medication. We'll see how that goes. But much more interestingly, and I would kind of, this is one of the reasons I want to talk to him about this. He is one of the kind of really pioneering academic neurologists, and he is involved in a big trial with Imperial College and a spin-out company they've done to try and develop an artificial intelligence system and a smart device that you would wear that would monitor your symptoms and might eventually be a means of, diagnosis or grading treatment. So what that involved, this trial, a few weeks later, the doorbell rang and this box of tricks arrived at my door. A tablet computer programmed with an instant Zoom link on it, effectively, and 3 kind of clunky sensors, never going to make it into the shops because they look rubbish. But one on my upper arm, one on my lower arm, and one to wear on my hand. And then each day for 10 days, I would effectively turn on the Zoom and be taken through a series of exercises lasting about 20 minutes. Hold the hand out like that, do this, resting hand, and so on. One of which, rather amusingly, seemed to involve a kind of memory test as well, because during one of them, the guy at the other end, Tom, the researcher at Imperial College, got me to either count back in 7s from 102 or name objects that are green. I did a radio piece about this, and you heard me saying grass, herbs, coriander, green cars. I completely ran out of inspiration. Anyway, so that lasted 10 days. And what they were doing was gaining all sorts of information from my muscles via these sensors, which is being fed through the tablet to the researchers. And what they're effectively doing is taking, well, what they had done earlier is see some other patients on the trial face to face, probably, you know, before all this pandemic started. And they would get Dr. Yen Tai, to grade them on the Parkinson's, I think it's called the UDPS or UPDS, the scale, the commonly accepted scale for the level of symptoms. And then use that to compare that with the readings they were getting separately on the sensors. And effectively what they were doing was teaching the system to be like Dr. Tai. I put it to them and they said, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But I said, what you're doing is taking Dr. Tai's brain and putting it in the machine. Anyway, it's a fascinating trial, which is only, you know, it's some way through, but they've got a lot more stages to go. So later this year, they're hoping to produce a much more wearable gadget that will be, you know, that you could wear all the time and could pick up what you were doing when you know, picked up a cup of coffee or whatever. And then eventually there's another trial where they're wondering whether they can use this device to actually provide treatment, provide a mild electric current to counteract tremor. So I found all that fascinating. You can read about it on the BBC website. I wrote a long article on the BBC website, and I wrote a much longer article in the Times this week on Tuesday, all about that trial and a bit more about my experiences. And he says, with a plug, you can also read about it in this great new book, which I happen to know is available in Cambridge bookshops as well as at a certain online distributor, which is, it's not about, there's a bit about Parkinson's in it, but it's generally a book about my career covering the rise of the smartphone and social media and what all of that has done to us. It's called Always On because that's what we are, always on. There's no barrier between work and home. We're connected all the time. Is that good for us? Is it bad for us? I'm not sure. I argue both sides, but the end of the book is about health, or is largely about health, because it was written during the pandemic. I'd always meant it to be more about Parkinson's, but then the pandemic came along, and there were broader questions of how technology helped us during the pandemic, like this. You know, just imagine the pandemic had happened in 2005. You would not have been having these meetings then, because A, you wouldn't have had, or fewer of you would have had the computers. Hey Google, stop. Just one moment while I get the bread out. Just one moment. Let's have a look. What do we think that's done? Yeah. I'm going to give it 5 more minutes, okay?
We can smell it from here, Rory.
We'll set a timer for 5 minutes. It could just do with another 5 minutes. Yeah. So, yeah, as I was saying, technology has been, you know, my obsession for the last 20 years, really. I am not by any means, you know, a mega specialist. I did the humanities. The only computer at my school was in the science block. It filled a room, and it could only be approached by boys doing physics and wearing white coats. so, of course, now I've got a computer here, many more times more powerful than that computer in the science block at school, and so have we all. And they're having all sorts of good and some bad effects on our lives, but I don't think we would have coped very well without them in all sorts of ways, or without that kind of connectivity during the last year and a bit. And they also, all of this technology has, my watch has just told me, for instance, it's time for my medication. So I'm going to carry on exploring what this technology can do for us, with particular interest in how it affects the Parkinson's community. So I'm very happy to answer any questions. Although in 3 minutes I will get the bread out finally.
I think the amazing thing, you talked about this technology not being available, Rory. Just today, we've got you in London, the majority of us around Cambridgeshire. Our chairman, Mark Goodrich, who you probably know, was chair of trustees of Parkinson's up until quite recently. He's in Shetland. Right. Caroline, one of our committee members, is down in Bristol. And I notice there's another guy that I know that's dialed in from Ipswich. That 14, 15 months ago was unthinkable. Yeah. Absolutely unthinkable. And now all generations are using the technology. So I think there are some really good points to it, but there are days when you've done 4 in a row and you think, I'm absolutely worn out from this.
My wife does call it bloody Zoom now. She spends hours a day on it and won't. We go and see neighbours every Sunday. We have for years, 2 sets of neighbours in each other's houses, and of course we had to stop that for long periods and replaced it with a Zoom. And the second time around we had to replace it with a Zoom. She just said, I can't do this anymore. You know, I'll do it again when we can see each other face to face, because I spent all week talking to people on this. I want some real FaceTime. Yes. The weekends. So it's got its good and bad sides.
One question did crop up. I don't think it was put on the room, but to me it was, with Jeremy Paxman recently being diagnosed, have you liaised with him over this? I haven't.
I worked very briefly with him years ago, but I have to say the Daily Mail got in touch with me and said, can you put us in touch with Jeremy Paxman? And I said, afraid not. But I mean, what's been really interesting, all sorts of people have got in touch with me. I won't name him, but a well-known weatherman got in touch with me the other night, saying, having read the piece I wrote in the Times. A High Court judge got in touch. All sorts. I met great people at Parkinsons UK. You probably know about the comedy writer Paul Mayhew Archer.
Yes. Very
funny. Great guy, Dave Clark, who was the Sky darts commentator. David Kid Jensen, who's a lovely fella. Kind of, you know, doesn't call himself Kid anymore. He's even older than I am, but he was absolutely charming. And we all got taken to see the brain bank at Hammersmith Hospital, which was an extraordinary experience. Brilliant research. I mean, I go on about the technology, smartphones and so on, but that is, you know, research has been going on for a long time, which is really absolutely vital, and, you know, offers one of the hopes for finding out enough about Parkinson's to maybe reverse it. And that was an extraordinary experience.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Andrew Ahmed?
I can hear you.
I've got a rubbish picture of myself. Can you see what I'm holding up?
No, you need to hold it higher. What is it? What is that? Is that a Raspberry Pi or something?
No, I've made this.
Right.
It's a device to overcome freezing of gait.
Oh, right.
What it does is it emits a tick,
Mm.
and I can walk to the beat. I can change it in ratio faster and slower.
Right.
And I've designed this and built it because I've had Parkinson's for 17 years.
Right.
So this is revolutionary to me. Yet I've succeeded in interesting nobody in what it would do for me. What you can do is when I try to walk, when the medication gets low, I tend to try to stutter my feet. And by walking to the beat, I can control it. And I can do things like that. I put it on in the morning, I take it off at night. It absolutely revolutionizes my situation. I'm into technology, and I'm interested in the sensors that are being used that you know about. I've got a mechanical one, a mechanical thing to do vibrations on the legs as a planned option. And I could also do the business of correcting the medication if I knew what the sensor information. So I'm into technology, but I'm devastated that I've not shared this with anybody. Few people know it, but nobody has bothered to say, I want one, or two people have got one. One guy said, I used to walk to the sound of my grandfather clock. So this is a bit light in your grandfather clock.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
he said it's brilliant. So I've had the people who've needed it said it's wonderful. Two people said it's wonderful, but I totally failed to propagate it to availability. I've got a website, but I've got no feedback of anybody saying they want one.
Have you told
So
Parkinsons UK about it?
Keith Howlett knows about it.
Yeah, Andrew, I will get you in touch with somebody from Parkinson's in the technology and digital department during the next week.
I mean, I've got 100 of these things made in China of electronics. I'm prepared to flog it for 85 quid or give away the design if somebody else wants to run with it.
Andrew, leave it with me. I'll get you a contact at Parkinson's so we can progress it. Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's just frustrating that I feel that I've sat upon something that I haven't got haven't got the benefit of it. That's the frustration I have.
I'll be in touch with you, Andrew.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions for Rory?
Can I make a point?
Please, David.
I was interested in what you said, Rory, about not having off periods. I've had Parkinson's for about 8 years now, and I similarly don't really experience off periods, and I don't get this improvement when you take the medication. And I wondered if that is in any way significant. I haven't actually asked my consultant Roger or anybody else about that, and it's an interesting point. The other thing was you mentioned St Mary's Paddington.
Yeah.
I've actually been there ages ago to help with the fundraising to do with focused ultrasound,
Right.
which is a potential new treatment which seems to have completely ground to a halt in
Yeah.
the UK. But it's very interesting because it's far less intrusive than direct deep brain stimulation.
Yeah.
And it's a form of that without.
I've never heard of that, but that's interesting. Yeah.
And the person who works there is actually, strangely enough, a friend of our neighbours.
Right.
Who's a guy called Gedroich.
Right.
And he was, this is about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
was raising money for a new system with an MRI scanner and so on. And I don't know what's happened to it. I suspect COVID has.
Well, next time I actually see Dr. Joanna Ball is St Mary's Paddington, but I see her at a hospital called the Prince Charles, I think it is, in somewhere in Notting Hill. Yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? You see them so rarely. I mean, my consultant's very good, but I've had this with my other thing. You come out thinking, damn, why didn't I ask that? You really need to go in with a whole list of, type down an agenda. Sometimes I record because, sometimes my wife can come with me, but, mostly not. And sometimes I record what the doctor has said because my wife's much better at thinking of things I should have asked.
Yeah.
I've just got to get that bread out. Sorry. I think that will be done now. Oh, yes.
Keith, it's
Yes.
Karen here.
That'll do.
The chat doesn't seem to be working. Is it working? There haven't been any chats.
I just,
And Rory certainly isn't listed there.
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing
Listed
you.
on mine.
Yeah,
You know,
the chat at the bottom.
yeah.
I've just sent,
That
sent
is
a message
working.
to everyone.
Or isn't it not? Hello, everyone.
Oh, I got that.
Yeah, that's working.
I've been sending the messages to the waiting room.
Ah. Right.
There you go. Sorry, people.
I was just
It'll all be
hoping
done
to
tonight.
send a note of thanks to Rory for being here, but I'm sure Keith will do it more vociferously than
Well,
So I've got a lot of. I'm hoping to spend more time in Cambridge. I've got a huge affection for Cambridge because I studied there. My wife was very much an Oxford person. Went to Oxford and never really understood Cambridge, and now she's getting to grips with it. Although for the first about a month in, she rang me and said, "I can't believe this place. There are cows in the middle of town." She was walking across some meadows or other. Yeah.
Well, we'd be delighted to have you as an honorary member, Rory.
I'd be honoured to be an honorary member.
We'd be delighted and keep you in touch with what we're doing up here in Cambridge, and then maybe when we're getting back to face, we can actually see you face to face.
Yeah.
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any questions? Mark, would you like to say something?
Yeah. Hi, Rory. Mark Goodwin. We last met, I think it was at the Palace. It was soon after you had been diagnosed, and to enormous credit to you. I mean, one of the things that during my 10 years of being a trustee, one of the real issues is the newly diagnosed often really don't want to talk about their condition, and you've really sort of set a path which I think is very positive and very constructive about being so open about your diagnosis and how it's now affecting you and so on, because time and time again we find people who are saying, well, I really don't want to tell anybody, I'm not at that point that I want to sort of disclose. So I mean, secondly, I'm a great fan of your reporting, and I think you do. And actually, Parkinsons UK have had some good people who are good at communicating the science, because it's quite a specialist area, that ability to be able to communicate, as Keith was saying in his introduction, and you've really captured that. And I mean, it's not just for the Parkinson's community. I mean, I think it's for the.
Well, it's almost more important, isn't it, that everybody else gets.
Yes.
How various it is. I mean, that's what has really struck me, because I didn't know an awful lot about it. But
yeah, it's a collective term.
Yeah.
It's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And you can't help wonder whether over time, a bit like cancer was sort of 20, 30 years ago, we talked just about cancer. We rarely talk about cancer now.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about different kinds.
You talk about particular cancer and so on. And Parkinson's, I think, will increasingly sort of coalesce around a series of subtypes and so on, which makes the whole question of diagnosis and therapies even more complicated, as it has done, in the whole field of cancer. Yeah. So I mean, it's tremendous you could join us this morning. Just one comment from me. I'm sort of amused by this whole Bitcoin debate about the sheer volume of data that is required to service Bitcoin. And having heard about some of these sensors, and because I have a cardiac condition, I have a Apple Watch that gives a fair amount of information in terms of my condition.
And it has to be said, the Apple Watch, they're doing interesting work about Parkinson's too.
Yes. But just the sheer volume of data. And I'm sure there's going to come a point quite soon when, like the Bitcoin debate is saying, do you realize that we're frying the planet because of just the sheer computing power we need?
Well,
and similarly in the whole health area.
Bitcoin is a particular case in that it kind of rewards the frying of the planet somehow.
Yes.
It's almost the point.
Yes.
Madness.
So on behalf of the branch, it's great to have you with us, and do hope that we'll be able to keep you as a member and friend and be part of the Cambridge community, because it's a very vibrant group, and as you know, we have a lot of groups around the country. But I think Cambridge leadership is good.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
My bread is done. My next task is actually to go and see an elderly relative and sort out their IT problems. So
Can I just ask everybody if they'd like to raise their hands to give you a virtual round of applause, please?
Thank you very much.
Your book, available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon and in good bookshops, only good ones.
Yeah, I must get that. Always on. Yes, I'll get it.
You'll be delighted to know, Rory, that it was actually featured on the publicity that we sent round to the members.
Very good.
Okay.
I'm doing a lot of flogging it at the moment. Anyway, very nice to talk to you all, and
Thank you. We'll be in
good
touch
luck with the rest of your meeting. Thank you.
very much.
Enjoy your bread.
Thank you.
Enjoy your break.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Wasn't that an interesting talk? Goodness, follow that. I've got just a few notes I wanted to give people somewhere, which I scribbled down. The committee met after our last meeting, and we're starting along the process of getting back to face-to-face meetings. At our next meeting, we're going to be discussing how we consult with the members, because the key to this, according to the Parkinson's process, is that we have to give you a view as to what it is that you would like to do, and then respond to the members' views. So we'll be doing that in the not too distant future. We've got 4 meetings. I have to say, Caroline is doing a stunning job. Caroline, thank you so much. Here, yeah, really good job. We've got next week. The next meeting on the 25th. We've got the people from Easy Read helping with communication. On the 9th of July, we've got Trevor Wallace, who our member Alan Brown mentioned, coming from Parkinson's Art to talk to us. On the 13th of August, we've got Mike Petty, the reporter from the Cambridge Evening News, coming to talk to us about Cambridge history. And on the 10th of September, which Caroline has sprung on me, which I think is an absolute delight, she's tracked down the guy who was the head archaeologist on the A14 project, and he's going to come and talk some of the finds from the A14, and he's going to be based in Scotland, so it's fascinating. Without Zoom, we probably wouldn't have got this guy coming to talk to us, as we wouldn't have had Caroline here today or Mark. So yeah, we've got a very interesting few weeks coming up.
Keith, can I interrupt you?
You may.
It's really, I've been meaning to drop a line to Caroline, but Rory mentioned it. Is it worth trying to contact the Brain Bank? Because I've been to the Brain Bank, and it is fascinating, and see whether they would do a Zoom for us.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Good.
But does that seem like a good idea?
Absolutely.
It's an awesome idea.
I actually made a note of it as he mentioned it.
Good. Interruption ended.
No, not at all. I think it's a good interruption, and it's one that we should be encouraging our members to sign up to. And the final notice I'd got was remember Alan Brown was talking about 3rd and 4th of July, open studios at the Pit Building in Trumpington Street, Cambridge, where he's displaying his art along with lots of other artists from around Cambridge.
Is it in the Pit Building? I thought it was in the Guildhall. Oh.
No, Pit Building.
Pit Building. It is. Yes, I think Pit Building.
Pam, you're waving furiously.
Oh, not furiously, just trying to. Can I add an advert, please? We're hoping that we might be able to do a cream tea again this year.
Oh, lovely.
On the 12th of September, if it is. But I reserve for a while yet because of, well, obvious things. And the other point, could I just go back to... Hello?
Yeah.
Can I just go back to what Andrew was saying about the TikTok watch thing he's created? I've known Andrew for a very long time, and it is a very good piece of.
I've got to go and move my car. I'll be back.
Very good piece of technology that he's created. Very creative person. It doesn't, like so many of these things, and as Mark has said, Parkinson's is probably lots of different bits all under the one heading. It doesn't work for every type of Parkinson, everybody, but it is very good, and I could recommend it to people to try. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I will put a note out on my next communication with the website, with Andrew's website on it, and I will promise to speak to somebody in Parkinson's to get in contact with him. Thank you. Anything else?
Could I just say, Keith, that is Parkinson's UK has tended to be sort of quite cautious with respect to quite a wide range of interesting devices. And I got friendly with not Andrew. I've come across Andrew, but with a number of folk who got particular devices that have really proven to be revolutionary, using Andrew's word, for particular people. And the complication that Parkinson's UK, of course, has is, can we verify this? Okay, it works with A, B, and C, but you get into the whole question about trials and efficacy and biomarkers, and it goes on and on and on and on. And the AI stuff that Rory was talking about, I mean, I think it will be very helpful in finding ways of being able to demonstrate that these devices really do help. But at the moment, we're still at the foothills. And I'm really saying this because I've had people that have been really disappointed about the Parkinson's UK response. And to begin with, I thought, come on, Parkinson's UK, you've just got to get off your backside and be a bit more proactive about all of this stuff. But I did come to understand that it is a pretty complex area for the charity, if you like, to formally endorse.
Oh, I quite understand and agree with that, and that's not what I was meaning. Was that it's worth locally.
I agree with you.
I agree with you. They can't because they are the official.
Yes.
Body. Yeah, it's different.
It is, and my point is, I don't want us to feel rejected or downhearted. I think if we can help experimentation, then good.
Jolly good. Okay. Can I just say a big thank you to everyone for being here today, particularly our friends and guests from Peterborough branch. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. To Alan from Ipswich, really good to see you. I'm happy to sign off now, unless anybody else has got anything they wish to add.
I think we have something.
Sorry, Penny.
I just want to say thank you for your email about the Blue Book, and we're pursuing various options, but that's one of them. Thank you so much for your help.
You're very welcome. Pleased to help. Pleased to help. Thank you. Okay then, people. I trust you're all well. Keep well. Enjoy the fine weather. Let's hope it lasts.
What do you say? What fine weather?
Oh, well, if you want to be in Scotland or Northern Scotland.
I'm not in Scotland.
I'm sorry. No.
This isn't Scotland. We're going to have our independence from Scotland.
I can see you back at the next committee meeting.
Are you with us at the next meeting, Keith? I know you've got some meetings when you're going to be away, haven't you?
And we've organised, well, I suppose we could mention today, our meeting planned for the 23rd of July is on Friday, and I'm not going to be about. And I wondered if there would be any objections to us moving it till Thursday that week, just for a change. Might actually see if we can pull some other people in who I know can't attend because they have other activities on Fridays.
I've got it in my diary for 7:30 on Thursday already.
And that's the committee meeting, David.
Well, I've got both.
You've got both?
Yes.
I think that was just the committee meeting.
Yeah.
That was just committee.
Okay.
Well, should I put a survey out on email? And if people come back to me and say that the Thursday would be good, we'll do it on Thursday. Because I must admit, I enjoy doing these and I enjoy meeting everybody. And I really don't like to miss out.
I'm not sure who else
will be talking about me then.
Incidentally, Keith, I couldn't get the link that you sent. It didn't want to know. The normal, just by clicking on the link, he takes you straight to the meeting. It didn't work this morning, so I had to put in the ID and the password. I don't know if anybody else had that problem. No. Maybe I need another reboot. Are you signed up to Zoom, David?
We had that problem first of all, and then I tried the link that came in Keith's email yesterday, and that did work. It was the first email from the 5th of June, I think it was, that didn't work.
How odd.
Oh yes, I had the same problem.
Okay.
There is an issue with Zoom, as I understand it. If people are not signed up to Zoom, have got their own Zoom account, it sometimes forces you to go in through putting in the meeting code and then the password.
Right.
That's the only issue that I can understand, because it often looks for an authentication of the individual. And I don't think that's down to us. I think it's just the way the system works.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all very much for today. I thought Rory was an exceptional speaker. Really enjoyed it. So,
yes,
Caroline, thank you so much for organising that. Yes.
And thank you, Keith.
Thank you for being the host.
You're welcome.
Hey,
Catch up with you all soon. All the best.
All the best. Bye.
Thank you.